Yeah. Hello, everybody. We actually have more of you on Zoom right now than on in our room. That's because we just finished a really large session with a representative from the United Nations Academic Impact Initiative. Maybe we'll get more people, physical attendees in our room now. But I would like to introduce myself and begin our 30-minute session. I'm Dr. Michael Chattalas. I'm a marketing and international business professor, and I'll be briefly moderating this session. So we have two papers, and our presenters are here. I will introduce Brian, who is ready to present his paper, our first speaker. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Michael. And again, thanks to Monmouth for putting this on and certainly inviting me, but more than inviting me, putting this on. I think during the next half hour, we're going to talk a lot about how to implement teaching, how to get teaching done, innovative, maybe necessary ways to do teaching, teaching sustainability. And I'm a big believer that programs like this, platforms like this are a start, you know, and to at least opening up some mindsets, as Elizabeth was, or Catherine, not Elizabeth, Catherine, right? Still Catherine, was saying, in many cases, the roadblocks are kind of the administrative level, and if we can open some eyes to what we can do and what is happening in the classroom, then maybe we can make some progress. So I'm a finance professor. I'll give you the context. Finance professor in Louisiana. I'm in the business school, finance professor, hopefully a well-rounded, non-myopic finance professor, but still a finance professor. In Louisiana, as I was saying before, we are probably 40 to 50 years behind most other places in terms of sustainable development. We think recycling's a big deal. We also think it's a burden. And so we think clean energy is 1970s style hydro energy. So we've got a lot of opportunities. And then you throw in social inclusion and the fact that we have the 50th best economy of the 50 states. We've got a lot of progress to make. So I want to introduce a course that I've been doing the past 4 years. Give you the context. It is a UNIV 100 course, a first-year experience course. As Catherine was saying earlier, it's hard to do this within disciplines, and you said that you do it in the general education, yes, right? And that's essentially what this is. UNIV 100 is a mandatory course that all first-year students take, but and they're in sections of 15 to 25 students. There's 100 different topics. And so if you're interested and you want to do something creative, this is where you do it. Problem is, they're first-year students, and this is a mandatory course, and they don't always know what they're doing. Every section has a description, a unique description, and so they know what they're signing up for, but they don't really know what they're getting into. They think they might just be getting a good course at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday, Thursday, right?
I think it should be easy because it's mandatory.
And that's a big problem because some are simple, like how to succeed in college and meet your advisor and things like that. And others are deep dives into kind of narrow topics, women's literature in France or something, women's French literature. And so it's hit or miss. And what I try to do in this course is teach them to think and kind of open up how they think and what they're thinking about within the SDG framework or sustainable development framework. So I start by saying there's 4 key words. Let's just communicate. And in Louisiana, which is 60% red and 40% blue politically, I want a lot of respect. I want flexibility and kind of without a strict curriculum. And I want to build. I want to be positive and build something. And we call the course Building a Sustainable Society. And so we want to build that. So what's the course about? It's about identifying some of society's biggest problems. Again, these are 18-year-olds coming into college, out of high school, where maybe they didn't have the strongest, deepest high school education they could have. But get them thinking about the problems, get them thinking about potential solutions. I'm a finance guy. maybe that's my reason. I always use the word investment. If we're going to do something, whether it's building a bridge or learning how to improve agriculture, there needs to be benefits. And so we talk about investments, we talk about trade-offs. And I try to impress upon these 18-year-olds, it's about your future. Less about my future than it is theirs. Try to move them away from politics, try to move them away about complaining about the past, history. It's about trying to get as much out of their college experience and taking ownership for it as possible. And again, about their future. So Omar was introducing a number of different definitions of sustainable development. The one I always come back to is the Brundtland Commission definition that emphasizes the harmonization between social inclusion, economic growth, and environmental protection, especially in a class like this, because it allows them, it's not me preaching, this is what sustainability is, it's them allowing them, hopefully allowing them to kind of pick the dimensions that they want. I add in education and innovation, which is a model that the EU uses, and create this kind of multi-tiered or whatever perspective, again, to give the students, 18-year-olds in Louisiana, whatever lens they want, whatever framework they want to choose to, when I add on the goals as well. Pick any of these models, pick one of these frameworks, models, dynamics, and use it to solve a problem. Use it to make your future better, whatever that means. We can do it top down, we can do it bottom up. Again, I don't prescribe this, but I try to introduce it. Mention in a second, give you a list of some of the guest speakers I bring in, and they're introducing different models too. Whether you identify the problem and then work towards the goals, or you start with the goals and try to solve problems. I don't try to prescribe it. I let the students figure it out. So we do journal assignments every week, and they hate this because it makes them think. Our 18-year-olds are maybe not yours. My 18-year-olds aren't used to thinking. They're not used to intellectual freedom and curiosity. And so forcing them or encouraging them to intellectually problem solve is uncomfortable. I hope that's kind of our job, to challenge them. And so what is one problem that you want to fix in society? And they give you we get the list, and I'm not being cynical or critical of the list, it's a list that might frequently like to see. I always point out number 7, getting Mercedes-Benz. Not necessarily a problem, but if that's your goal, great. Let's figure out a way to make it happen, right? And maybe graduating college is the first step, hopefully. You go from getting a Mercedes-Benz to world peace. But global warming, racial inequality, economic, some student loan stuff, clean water. These are all student suggestions. So after this list of about 39, this is a couple semesters of students. What are 1 or 2?
Would never come up in the United States, in New
Yeah,
Jersey.
that's right. But you would have other coastal issues, right?
Totally.
Yeah. And so I had a group actually do levee systems, do a project. So we start with this list and then we narrow it down. Let's do 6 projects or something like that. We did a project on levee systems. This is a group from New Orleans. I think it was 2 years ago. And so if they were born in 2000, so if it was 2021, they were born in 2003, and Katrina hit in 2005. And so many of my students, I'm in Lafayette, New Orleans is 100 miles east. Many of my students have now evacuated with Hurricane Katrina in 2005. And so that's, even though they might have been 2 or 3 or 4 years old, they remember, and it's visceral. And, despite or in spite or whatever political environment may be happening, they don't want that to happen again, right? The idea of evacuation is intense and disruptive and memorable.
But Lafayette has had something like 3 major hurricanes.
We had in 20 and 21, we had 3. I had 2 go over my house. Yeah, my house is fine. There's probably an inequality dimension to that too, or a privilege dimension.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
When you mention Louisiana is something like number 1 in the state for in the 50 states for hurricane landings.
Yeah. We have the 50th best economy and the 50th best environmental protection or conditions. And so Ida hit in 2021, 2 years ago, 20 months ago. colleagues at other schools are still working out of trailers. Their offices, on-campus offices were destroyed and they're working out of trailers. This is real, right? When you're an 18-year-old, you're going to class in a trailer, that's not what's in the brochure, but it's what you're experiencing. And then some other hunger, healthcare. We narrow that down, and these are some of the projects that we actually ended up doing. And these are groups of 4 to 6 first-year students. They do, even though I don't want it to be political, sometimes they do get political with gun reform or the two-party system, and try to get some thoughtful projects out of that. That's general problem one. Number two is maybe my favorite because I'm a finance guy. Give them $100, take the 17 goals, which is your favorite? And went through some of the goals, you get some like student number 6 in the yellow where they're putting it all on poverty. Maybe that student was being lazy, or student number 5 put it all on 17, the partnerships. But it forces them to think and take a little ownership and get to know the goals maybe a little bit. On average, number 1 was the favorite, and 12, sustainable consumption, was the least favorite. 18-year-olds hate the idea of responsible consumption. Perhaps not surprising. The idea of stuff is still appealing. And then we pose thought experiments as well. Is it possible to have economic growth at the same time that we have environmental sustainability? And finance professor me kind of pushes back. Is it possible to have economic growth without environmental sustainability? How many of you like food, right? How many of you like shelter? That all contributes to economic growth. And so we do these thought experiments. I bring in a lot of guest speakers from sustainability office director, diversity, professors around campus. Again, this is a first-year course. Part of what I want to do is expose them to different topics. I don't want them to fall in love with me or my class, but if they fall in love with a topic or an issue, and we can give them a guest speaker who connects with their interests, then that's a big win. Lots of thought experiments, lots and lots of work. And by work, I mean little work. An hour or two of active work each year, plus reading and such. One of my favorite things is curating reading lists and quotes lists for them. A quote that several have come up with this, the tech quote. Only one request, I didn't ask for money, although I need it. I do not ask for meat. I have only request, all I ask is you remove the roadblock from my path. And that's a big issue in Louisiana. Louisiana's infrastructure is not designed for progress. It's not designed for people. And so these 18-year-olds are used to lots and lots of roadblocks in being told no. So what lessons have I learned? Some of you will agree, and a course like this has to be interdisciplinary. It can't be siloed at the first year experience level, and maybe not even at junior or senior. Having lots of assignments, little assignments, whether it's a journal assignment, a simple budget on SDGs, lots of readings from different perspectives. One thing I love about the guest speakers is they bring in readings I've never even heard of or seen, and they're directed and they're beneficial. Those guest speakers really made the course. We actually started before COVID, but certainly it picked up with COVID and is easy for people to sit on a Zoom and teach. One thing I'm trying to figure out is, was this course wasted on first-year students? I did it with first-year students because it's where I could do it, and I still do it, first-year students. But if you go through 6 weeks and you ask a first-year student, what have you learned from this model? What are you thinking? Well, racism's bad. Some of their feedback and thought isn't that deep, but if they learn the racism is bad, maybe that's progress. And so we can't have an interdisciplinary minor because who's going to own it? These challenges at the university level make the UNID 100 experience about the only place we can do it, but I'd love for us to do it at junior, senior, or even creating a grad program in sustainability where we could do this. I have no idea how that would happen, but I'd love to see everything we're talking about today at the grad level. Yeah.
Just 2 questions.
Yeah.
The first thing, since you taught this through COVID and the polarization of our political system has gotten worse.
Yeah.
Have you noticed any pushback when you bring in the UN?
No.
That's the first part.
Well, so let me rephrase that. These are 18-year-olds, and any pushback they give on exactly. Yeah. any pushback, again, Louisiana 60% red and 40% blue. But it is 40% blue, right? It's not 90-10. Any pushback I get from an 18-year-old is either passive aggressive or silent, right?
I was wondering.
Yeah, they're not for whatever, and I try to encourage it. I try to, I use the UN as the foundation, but I try to bring in I bring in Wall Street reports. I try to bring in other dimensions. The students haven't given me pushback. Administration ignores me. I'd love some pushback. Yeah.
And my second is more of a statement. You said something about, is it wasted and our first year students learn anything? You asked me, oh, racism is that. But maybe really the better way to think about it is, are they able to make new questions? And that, if you're doing that, then I think you've actually succeeded a huge amount, because if students start to question, then that starts to make them think of, what was the answer? And they start to see the complexities and the realities and the real reasons for studying this. So I think in that case, it'd be
I had an architecture professor who talked about environmental racism, built environment, and kind of where you decide to put the airport and the transfer station. We allowed 2 days for architecture, and the students wanted like 3 weeks. And so you see glimmers of that. And in this class, probably 70% white, 30% black students. And you do, it's not, I say it's waste. It could, I feel like it could be more depth, but
no, I know what you meant.
we're turning on some lights.
Yeah, in that vein, I graduated from Monmouth with a master's degree in anthropology.
Yeah.
And my thesis was on archaeological sustainability and getting into not the dirt, but to find artifacts and be able to tell stories about history without digging is the future of archaeology.
Yeah.
And I think that that's neat that 18-year-olds can actually get into. I mean, I'm a child of a master graduate who was an artist. So I grew up in Hudson Valley, where she would put down an easel at the river. And then she would say to the 5 of us, oh, go ahead and find some artifacts. So kids always like to get into the dirt.
Yeah.
But sustainable archaeology is really about being able to see those artifacts in the ground without digging. Just be totally.
Right.
That's my.
I am done. Yeah.
That's my thesis going forward, is archaeological sustainability. And I think that and being able to fly a drone to do it is even more. So.
We actually were able to do some educational research on our interdisciplinary course. And I'm wondering if your IRB would permit you to question your students a posteriori.
Yeah.
So to pull your enrollment lists and send juniors
Track
and
them.
seniors a simple questionnaire. And, very simple, low impact questionnaire. If you're interested in what they got from it, I mean, I just talked to 2 of my students that I had in 2002 today.
Yeah.
Not from an interdisciplinary course. And it's surprising to me what those students say 3 years later stood out about the class.
Yeah.
So if you do that, you may feel better and know what you want to develop if your IRB will let you.
I mean, these are great points, and I'd love to track the students over the next 4 or 5 years, and that IRB was flat starting point. I think
Ryan, thank you very much. I think we learned a lot. Let's hear a round of applause. For everyone on Zoom, we have a second presentation, which really integrates very well with Brian's presentation. So we now have 2 presenters from our own school, from Monmouth University, Jiwon and Sandra. We're going to talk about interdisciplinary education at the elementary level. And again, Brian, thank you very much for that. Fascinating.
10 minutes is hard.
And you got a lot of amazing, I think, topics from your students, actually. So here we go with the second presentation. Thank you.
Is this? I don't know. I know. Let's stop the share for a second. Sorry. Hang on. Where is the presentation? Is it- Here it is.
No,
Slideshow.
I can find it.
Oh,
It's
go ahead.
not ours.
Yeah, that's not ours.
Mm,
I need to do some more. Slideshow.
And then, oh,
Okay, we got that at least figured out.
then how can we find?
So escape and now go to share.
No,
There
I
you
can't.
go. Now
Then
can-
it's now.
I think go back to Zoom.
Yeah.
Share this. No, is it that one?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
And then slideshow.
Yeah.
All right. I think we got everything.
Okay.
Yeah, Brian, because when
Thank
we,
you very much.
thank you. As I hear this, your presentation, so wow, I was so personally very glad that, oh, there is someone out there in other states that have a similar good ideas. So yeah, I'm so glad to hear that.
And just to let you know, there was a couple messages on the chat who were very thankful
Oh.
of you. Sorry.
Mhm.
So make sure you know.
3 years in, we're still learning.
Yeah, we all.
We too,
we all-
yeah, it's 3 year, but yeah,
Thank
still
you.
learning.
So I'm Dr. Sandra Zach, and this is Dr. Jiwon Kim, and we're going to split the talk up. I'll do the first part and give a brief introduction to our program and the capstone course, and then Dr. Kim is going to tell us some of our results and share some of the students' amazing work. All right?
Yep.
Come on. Okay. So our question is the following. Can we have students learn to teach global sustainability? Can we learn?
Yeah, is this, I mean, this presentation is not about really research, but it's more like a showcase of what we did for the last 4 years about our program. I mean, in our program, it's an interdisciplinary elementary education, teacher education program. And then also we co-teach the capstone course for the senior, and it's truly we're trying, but if, I mean, we believe it, the course itself, for the capstone course, we teach how they can, because they're teachers, they will be teachers, so how they can design their interdisciplinary lesson plans for their future classrooms. So, but for this presentation, we're going to focus on this question. So this question would be, how interdisciplinary, what an interdisciplinary elementary teacher education program and its capstone course be effective for learning to teach global sustainability. So we're going to focus on that.
So we'll start with an overview of the program. In the major, it's really a major in our school. It's a very content-driven elementary education major. So there are 5 content courses required in each of the major academic disciplines. So these students are coming in with a very deep understanding of different areas of content. Many of the areas, math and science in particular, have designed specific courses for this major, which gives them the ability to start introducing ideas of interdisciplinary work in those courses so that the students can start to see this. So for instance, in math, 4 of the 5 math courses have been designed specifically for that program. Students, because of the training, are able to become middle school certified if they choose, so that they can actually go teach in the middle school. And they could do it in any one of those academic disciplines if they pass the middle school praxis. And the major itself is housed in education, but it's actually run by a committee. The whole program was designed by the entire faculty of Monmouth University, and it's run by this committee, and on it is someone from each of the content areas and 2 education faculty members. So all decisions are discussed and come to an agreement, which I think addresses kind of what you were talking about. How would you do this? This is a way to do this.
As far as you know, this is the only unique program in full entire state.
There are programs that are liberal arts majors. There are programs that do have, like for instance, San Diego State, I know, has a liberal arts major for their elementary ed, but I don't think there's anyone that's designed at such a high level. So at the end of the 4 years in the semester before the students begin their student teaching, they take a seminar course. It's a capstone course for the program. It's a seminar, and specifically it's there to teach the interdisciplinary method of teaching. The course is by requirement co-taught So Dr. Kim mentioned the two of us teach this course. We've been the only teachers. This will be our 5th year coming up. It's been great to work, the two of us. It's not only designed to be co-taught, but it's designed to be co-taught by a content faculty member and an education faculty member, which is bringing 2 separate disciplines together so that the students can actually see some model of a multidisciplinary approach. It's not true interdisciplinary in that sense.
Even for the discipline, she's a math person and then I'm on social studies. So we can have different perspectives.
As a part of the theme, the course is designed to have something of social importance. So there is a major theme throughout running so that the students have a target, something to learn about. And as you can see, there's a list: poverty, diversity and inclusion, racism, urbanization. And we have chosen for the last 4 years, social justices. We felt it was a large umbrella term, which will allow us to have many different areas. So it covers all the UN sustainability goals and other things that the students might take into effect. So the design of the course, the way we designed it was in 2 parts. The first part, kind of like what you talked about, was bringing in speakers. We do that too. We bring in speakers in different academic disciplines to discuss how they actually do this or what things they've designed and to use social justice in their discipline. So they come, they give the students readings, they come in and lecture. Some of them have come to the classroom, many just meet on Zoom. 2 of the speakers, in fact, Dr. On and Dr. Goodson, are very well known in their fields. So it's been an honor to have them and come to talk, and they've really mentored the students to make changes, to decide different sort of topics on what to choose. So then the second part is where we get into the meat of the course, where we actually start doing things. And the first thing is, amazing enough, just choosing a topic is very hard at this point for the students because everything seems so important to them at this point. So they choose a topic and it's incredibly broad usually. They're like, I want to work on poverty. I want to work on diversity and inclusion. That's a huge topic. So then the next thing is what you really have to learn as a teacher is you learned in school. Yes, you took all those content courses. Learning hasn't ended. Now you do the real meat. And they need to do a literature review. And that mainly starts to focus them, makes them start to think about their topic and what they really want to do, what grade level, how they can approach this. This isn't a recipe. They all want that. They all think, oh, isn't this like a math problem? You just tell me, follow these 3 steps, I'll always be able to. That's not how it works. And that's not how it works in math either. There is no recipe. You have to find your way. You have to create this. Okay. So as they're doing this literature review, they start to narrow things down. They have to do a unit plan, which involves 3 lesson plans. Well, to get that, we do something called web design. Dr. Kim's going to show you some examples of how those web designs go about organizing their material, pulling together a variety of different academic disciplines, different standards from those, and how they all connect in not just to the topic, but to each other. Finally, they have to present their unit plan. And after they do a presentation to their peers, they also have to give a mini teaching presentation from their actual unit plan. So it's a small part of it, but they actually get a chance to teach that. And we hope in the future we can find another outlet for that so that some of the students can actually do their lesson, their full lesson.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to present about the students actually learning outcomes from this course, from this capstone course. So these are the social justice or the global issues that students chose for their teaching unit lessons, unit topics. Because since we and also the speakers introduced them about some different global issues topics and with the literature review. So they got to choose these topics. So we categorize them as 4 different groups. Over the 4 years, we had counted the students' numbers, how many students chose what topics they for their teachings. The first one is food and resources, like hunger, access to the food or good food, and then health issues, and then income inequalities. So we tied them. We didn't really, for the first year, right? We didn't really show them actual the UN SDGs goal, the 17 goals. But recently we did. But even we didn't show them, but it actually learned it and thought about those relevant goals naturally from all the speakers and readings, because we intentionally, in our mind, we wanted to really show them all these goals. So UN SDG goal 1, 2, 3 were related to these topics, and then 11 students chose. And then gender issues, the gender in job, especially the STEM areas, and then inequalities or rights to vote, because they were going to teach about some history too. So 12 students. So as you can see, we're even number, like most students are not really like picked one certain the topic, but they were interested everywhere. And then
a couple points too to make. First 2 years we did it, the students worked in groups, and then after that, starting with COVID, we started to individualize it and make it easier. So the numbers would be higher, there'd be more choices. And the other thing very interesting to note is it's interesting how even though some of the speakers were returned, some speakers one year would have a higher, like, it would really impact the students, and you'd see a lot more choices for whatever reason. So one year, Dr. Lasker talked about women in science a lot, and it impacted their choices. Another year we saw talking about food deserts with Dr. Goodstein, and boy, we saw like multiple students choose that. Dr. On talking about racial issues, and we then saw that. It's very interesting how those speakers certain years can have certain dramatic help.
yeah, so that's one of the findings that we're gonna present about. Yes.
Can I ask
Yeah.
really quick?
Yeah, sure.
Is there any literature factor analysis that could this coalesce into factors, or some of the 17 goals of the United Nations? How did these factors come up? Could one do a quantitative, factor analysis? Conceivably of topics?
We didn't. I mean, we didn't do intentional.
No, I just thought of whether there is in the literature, there might be, I don't know,
Oh.
quantitative based factor analysis because that's what you did intellectually.
Right.
Mm.
So maybe it's something to
Grouping,
look at.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So we kind of grouped
Maybe
it based on what they were.
Right. Oh, yeah,
It
that's
makes
good.
sense. They could.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for that idea. Yes, definitely. For the research paper, yes. And then for the environment, the climate change or climate justice, natural disaster. I know with Katrina, but over here is Hurricane Sandy. We experienced all the students, yes. And then water sanitation and sustainability and pollution, but in everywhere, ocean, coastal area, and then water, air, land. So many of students, 16 students chose this topic. And then the last one is diversity. So civil rights or racism, racial injustice, discrimination, identity issue, or the bullying, inclusion. So the 15 students. It's not secondary, but elementary teacher, there will be elementary elementary classroom teachers, but even though they're elementary level, but they think of these are very important topics. They're really willing to teach about these topics. So these are some of the examples from our students' web designs. It's not about website design, but we call it web design. This is from another like a theory about the interdisciplinary teaching lessons. So as you can see in the center, they start to think about the theme or the unit topic, big topic. And then they look at the curriculums or the cross-curricular standards, the New Jersey standards or the national standards. And then, what topics, what standards can be taught together when we teach about this topic? Because we keep telling our students that look at the real world situation. Real problem is not really like there is no block here, the math block, here the English block, right? Everything is intertwined. So why don't we teach the topics in real problem, real situation, and then that will help our students to understand their issues better and their students too, and then how they tackle and solve the problem will be more natural. So, and then they teach every content with the key terms, and then skills are really naturally intertwined in their teaching.
So if you look, you can see, as Dr. Kim was saying, you can see how the student has the lines to different academic disciplines, right? But then if you look closer, you start to see how there's back
Very
and forth
connected, yeah.
connected to each of the subjects.
Yes.
So as they're building these, they can see naturally, they're sort of naturally building things together. So this is what I was saying, their lesson plans, right? When you look at these, their lesson plans and their unit plans come together naturally.
Yeah, this is really cool. I wonder if, when you look at these, particularly when you look at it against, they have certain curriculum things they have to develop, right? So they're answerable to that. So you always have to, right? Do you find, did you see, and I think you might see, that no matter what the central topic is, you would consistently hit
Yes.
certain
Yes.
learning standards.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you could, so what you're saying is you can find a topic that you personally, or your class is interested in, and you can, this might be the one you chose for this
Yes.
class. But if you're going into an iteration, my guess is you're going to see consistent learning
Correct.
standards that pop up no matter what entry topic you take.
Yes, yes,
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So yeah, they actually, the student says they have to keep going back and forth. So they started with a big idea and then looking at the standards and then start to brainstorm. And then they come back to their web design again. So, oh, what else can I do? What standards can I actually teach with this? So they keep coming back and then they complete the ultimate.
And these are very important, especially when they go out and teach, because the standards are listed. They have the different standards from the different fields. Their principals are going to care about that. Their parents are going to care about that. And what they find is this is more effective than they ever thought possible, because that's not how they learn, right? Everything's silent. This is more effective in terms of teaching all the standards and crossing them. So it's such a way to teach, but this is also such a way to organize. I really find that this is a great way to.
You know, this web design reminds me of in cognitive psychology, associative networks, which is like links and nodes. I'm a marketing professor. I was trained in social psychology. That's one of the fields. So we recognize it, and it is about building connections. How long-term memory works. There's a whole field of associative networks, and it's called schema.
Oh, yeah.
field.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. But yeah, because they will, when they go into the classroom, unfortunately, they'll be like, you better check off all of these
Yes,
boxes
yeah.
for the learning. I mean, they're trying to open that up, but they are very accountable to certain things. So rather than saying, let's start from the standards, let's start from the problem, and then figure out how the standards, then we can hit as many of them as
Exactly.
possible.
See, this brings it, and it's right there, they're accountable. They can show it, and it's easy to show.
It's what actually it says, right?
Yeah, that's what they say too. Yeah, I can't take credit for that. They say this is really hard at the start, and at the end, the outcome is always almost across the board. This is much easier. I wish I had learned this for just any lesson to build from, because it organizes everything so nicely.
Actually, I mean, even though it's just one semester, we did the pre-test and pre-survey and post-survey. I mean, it's not like long study, but it's just for one semester. And then reflection papers, a lot of discussion, and then the assignments and reading assignments, and then the in-depth discussion, for the evaluate the learning outcomes. But actually, that's one of what students said. Yeah, they really wanted to use this to show them what they teach and what students learn. As I said, we have a lot of data, but for this presentation, these are just some of the key findings from our students' work. I love the statements that this kind of a course should be interdisciplinary. I totally agree. Yes, because the interdisciplinary program and capstone course were effective. We believe, especially after this teaching the 4 years courses, the interdisciplinary instruction provides teacher candidate students with openness and confidence in all subjects and skills to design the themed-based unit plans. So it really perfectly matched and it makes sense. The students reported at the end of the class that they felt comfortable. First, in the beginning, they said, well, what is it interdisciplinary? I thought we're just learning all subjects, but they didn't really understand how they teach interdisciplinary way. But they said, like, they went through all this process. Now they can do it. They know what it is and they can do it. So with the interdisciplinary teaching method, and they would be able to do it in the future classroom, but just a little bit, they worried about the future administrators, because they may not understand this method, or they may not want this method to use this. So, But other than that, they are really willing to, they're really interested and wanting to do this. They think that makes sense. It makes sense. The second one is, I think you mentioned already, but the speakers, instructors are very, very, and we could see in your course too. So, I mean, I think that's why the college education is very, very important. What we do is very impactful for our students of awareness and knowledge and their future life and their work, right? So because as you said, like some of the years, I mean, the speakers talked about heavily about the hunger, food issue, food desert. Then many of the students chose the topic, but in the later year, they have no idea about what is it. They have no idea. They have no opportunity to learn about it. So what speakers and instructor choose in the course affect the students' awareness and interest in social justice and global sustainability issues from multiple perspectives. So, yes, I think that's for now. This findings from the showcase. But yeah. Actually, our book is coming about this, not just the discourse, but total about the interdisciplinary teaching and teacher education, developing teacher competencies for interdisciplinary instruction. Because, I mean, there were studies, and especially for elementary education, but we don't really see how they actually do in schools nowadays. So, and especially the teacher education programs. So we really wanted to share what we learned. We'll keep learning. Yeah, we will also learn through this process, but we wanted to really share. Yeah.
I kind of feel like this is really cool stuff. Very, very congratulations. I kind of heard it without there a little bit, but I can see how Brian about hearing things that even though you're talking about a specific application, you know, I can see pathways. I feel like a little bit, we need to change the culture so that people don't hear interdisciplinary as watering down disciplinary. And I feel like most of I don't read the literature. I'm not an academic, I teach sometimes, but I do feel like even at the university, even in the literature, interdisciplinary sounds like a watering down of disciplinary. And I feel like what I heard very clearly is that's not what happened. That in fact, the disciplinary aspects of this, particularly for a middle school or school that might have to teach more than one type of class, whatever, is actually, it strengthens the discipline applications and the understanding in some ways. And so just in a way,
it's an absolute truth. So one of the teachers we have come in who actually does quite a bit of this, she's been doing this for about 20 years. Her name is Miss Grabowski. She actually teaches, she also does some adjuncting for a moment. She has to learn so much. Every time she pulls a big lesson together, she has these like different computer little Ozbots or whatever she calls them. She had these whole lighthouse projects where she had the kids with making like a green room. This is like a second and third grade classrooms. And she has to step out of her comfort area and find ways to learn these new technologies, these new things, to bring them back in to teach this big unit. And that's exactly what you're saying, right? You're learning. The teacher is constantly learning. The teacher is constantly, it never stops. And interdisciplinary is about that. And that's the hard part of it, because the teachers find out it means they have to keep.
It arguably empowers the students to a little bit more.
They were more motivated
and start to trust their instincts about what they care about or what they're motivated by. And that I can't imagine teaching, you know, young kids that, but I can imagine that somehow they don't need to have the SDGs first, because they almost instinctually will be exposed to something relative or related to that. I think
we should wrap this
Yep.
session.
Thank you
you
so
very,
much.
very much to both for participating.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you.
And I'm really happy how integration of the two topics was so natural. And thank you to our viewers on Zoom. So
Thank you.
yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you.
great, how cool. Well, I see you with that school site creating.
And to you at home, thank you very much for participating to our conference today. We will have a second day tomorrow morning starting at 9. So from Monmouth University in New Jersey on the shore. It's a very warm, beautiful, sunny day. We're all gonna go out now. Greetings. Have a good weekend.